The Auburn Tigers are SEC champions yet again, but are the road woes behind them? And also, pivoting to football, we will talk about the most interesting player that we are watching this spring. All that and more on today's Locked On Auburn.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zac Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. The Tigers win the SEC 81-68 in overtime against the Mississippi State. Started red hot, had an 18-point lead at one point, lost the lead, fought back, clawed back, had a chance to win it at the end of regulation, did not, but then Katie Johnson absolutely took over in overtime to seal the conference, or at least a share of the conference, with the opportunity to clinch it outright against South Carolina in Auburn Arena on Saturday. And I mentioned, I think, the biggest takeaway in all of this. I think Auburn proved they can score on the road, or at least put them in situations to win. I mean, we saw that it took overtime for them to lose to Arkansas. They fought back in Gainesville in that loss to Florida. And then obviously with Tennessee, it was a 3-point game with a minute left. So you look at it, it's like this is a team that's going to compete no matter what. But yet again, it was a situation where at the end of the game, Wendell Green brings the ball down the floor, and it just didn't seem like there was a plan. They eventually got it to Jabari, and then I think every Auburn fan in the world was screaming at the TV. It's like, there's 2 seconds left, Jabari, just throw it up. And it just seems like at that point, you should have a play ready for that. And I get that Bruce didn't want them to get set, and they wanted, the flow of the game to kind of happen, but that just seems to be an issue every time Auburn is in that situation. And I'm not pinning on Wendell. I've done that a little bit in the past, and I'm not meaning to, and I'm not going to do that here. But it just seems like the awareness wasn't there. I don't think Jabari realized how much time was left when he got it, and he just had to throw it up. There was a lot of things that just happened, and ultimately I think that falls on Bruce. Now, props to him for getting his guys right going into overtime, and Katie Johnson, man, he flipped the switch. He was incredible. I mean, thanks to his explosion of offense, Auburn almost scored as many points in overtime as they did in the second half because of that late surge there by Katie Johnson. And obviously, Jabari Smith's explosion in the second half allowed them to be in a situation even to send it to overtime. Jabari, 27 points on 9 of 13 shooting. 3 of 5 from 3. Are you kidding me? The kid, man, if you can get your hands on a pair of tickets this Saturday, you get to see him one more time in Auburn Arena. It's worth it. I don't care how much it costs. It's worth it. It's absolutely worth it. But look, just to kind of make sure that I'm not kind of hating on Wendell here. Wendell was decent, not shooting. He did not shoot the ball well. Where is his line? He was 3 of 12 shooting for 8 points, which isn't good. I think we all agree on that. But I love plus minus, and he led the team in plus minus. He had a plus minus of 25. He played 31 minutes, and while he was on the floor, Auburn outscored Mississippi State by 25 points. And he was leading the team in plus minus at the end of regulation. So it wasn't just because Auburn surged and he was on the floor with KD when KD was going off. Auburn was better with Wendell on the floor, considerably better. And so he does things more than just score. And I totally understand that. But still going 3 of 12, and, he shot 15 times against Tennessee. Is that the way to facilitate the offense? And I know a lot of people are saying, well, that's just a Bruce Pearl style of play. And I'm like, I get it. Like, Zep is shooting more, and we're seeing how efficient of a scorer he can be when he's shooting it from deep. Jabari's doing what he's doing. Katie Johnson's starting to turn it on a little bit. Devin kind of found the groove late. He had a key 3-pointer. And so, it's just, does that always need to be the way the offense operates with him shooting double-digit attempts every single night? Now, I also will give him credit this, and I talked about this in the Locked On Auburn Discord. there were several stints in the second half when Mississippi State kind of had all the momentum. There were 2 plays specifically in a row where he went in and attacked the rim. I think both times were in transition. And he very clearly got fouled on both of them, and there was no call whatsoever. So, like, that makes his stat sheet and his percentages drop considerably. But in one of those, he got fouled. He's sitting on the floor, and the ball comes right back to him, and he does that sick behind the back pass and set up Zepp, who I think then found Devin in the corner, which gave Auburn the lead. So, still, I mean, just a great team performance. And I probably should have led with this, just how cool it is for Auburn to be SEC champs yet again with a chance to win it outright Saturday against the Gamecocks. But the crazy thing about this is it's not a fluke. And it's kind of something we all saw coming because of the culture and, you know, what this program has become under Bruce Pearl. Getting a guy like Jabari Smith and having the ability to build a roster with a transfer portal. Look, this was his first offseason kind of being able to use the transfer portal. And he kind of went out and said that he didn't like the transfer portal because it's going to kind of change things. Well, he adapted quicker than anyone else because he figured out how to get 3 really impressive guards that instantly, I mean, I know you're only technically starting 2 guards, but you're really starting all 3 of them with Wendell, KD, and Zepp. And then going out and getting a guy like Walker Kessler. And, I mean, he transformed this roster, bringing in Jabari. And then you slid a lot of dudes that were starters or very close to starters last year, like Jalen Williams and Devin Cambridge, into role players. He's figured it out. And the product of that was an SEC championship. And he said it after the game on the SEC Network broadcast, that this one's for those kids. You know, Bruce pointed out that he's got rings in a box at his house, but a lot of the guys on this team don't have that. And so they were able to celebrate that in the locker room last night, I hope. I hope they weren't so focused on Saturday and trying to win it outright. I know Zepp earlier in the week said the goal is to win it outright and then win the SEC tournament and then win the NCAA tournament. But hopefully the fact that you get a ring and the fact that you get to drop a banner in Auburn Arena with your team on it, I think that's pretty cool. And I hope they celebrated that. I know Auburn fans did. And they should. They should. You don't win a conference championship in any sport very often. It's just hard. In this league, it's just hard. Whether it's football, basketball, baseball, softball, equestrian, whatever it may be, it's hard. And this Auburn basketball team found a way. Hats off to all of you gentlemen. Just an incredible season. An incredible season. So did they right the ship, right? I mean, is this something that are the road woes behind them because they don't play another road game again? They play away from Auburn Arena. It's neutral site stuff, but I think it's done. I think all of that is done. So Auburn obviously wraps up at home, and then it's off to Tampa for the SEC tournament, where everyone's playing in a neutral side, obviously, and then tournament time. So great situation, I think, if you are an Auburn Tiger fan. I mean, seriously, this is a night that you need to celebrate. And it's only going to get better Saturday because they got a chance to cut down the nets in Auburn Arena. Hey, March Madness is obviously upon us. They made that very clear in the broadcast last night. And it's such a fun time of year. You want to make sure that you celebrate it the best that you can. So I got to tell you about Run Your Pool. And then I want to play a game. Mike G with the War Rapport will join us. And it's going to be a little fill in the blank action. The most interesting Auburn player to watch this spring will be blank. Run Your Pool is the place where you need to go to set up your bracket, whether it's for your family or for your friend group or your work group. If you want to do something, with your corporate structure at your job, Run Your Pool sets up your bracket pool where you can customize all of the scoring and make sure everything is kind of the way you want it. You're not going to get that at ESPN or CBS. Run Your Pool is the only place doing this. When I was in college, I wish I would have known about Run Your Pool because we always did this thing with my fraternity where we would all fill out a paper bracket and we had, if you had a team that advanced to the round of 32, it was worth so many points. Sweet 16 worth so many points. Elite 8 worth so many points. Run Your Pool can do all of that. And it takes like 2 seconds to set up. I did it the other day. It takes like 2 seconds. And so you need to compete against me and other Locked On listeners, not just Locked On Auburn, but folks throughout the whole channel. And we're using Run Your Pool to run our brackets. So if you want to play against us and win a chance to win cash prizes, join us at runyourpool.com/lockedon. And obviously, while you're there, it'd be smart to go ahead and make your own pool for your friends, family, work group, whatever it is. And when you do that, enter the code Pure Madness, one word, PUREMADNESS, at checkout for $10 off your custom pool. And all the rules and details will be available there. Runyourpool.com/lockedon for a chance to win a cash prize and have a ton of fun. Also, today's show brought to you by our local friends here at Fetch Me Home Delivery. We all have days where we get home from work and, you sit down and I know my wife gets home from work because I'm home before her. And she's like, man, I don't really want to cook anything. I'm like, well, honey, I don't either. So we go to fetchmedelivery.com and we have dinner taken care of it. And their delivery fees are super competitive. And I mean, it's worth it. It's the best deal in meal delivery. There's no question about it. And also an alcohol delivery. You can go to fetchmealcohol.com. They are adding products left and right throughout Auburn, Opelika, and Lee County. And you can get alcohol delivered right to your door thanks to new laws that are passed. And Fetch Me is all over that. So fetchmedelivery.com or fetchmealcohol.com. Check them out. Mike G of the War Report joining us. Not a War Report Wednesday, but a War Report Thursday. At least we got it in this week. Nonetheless, Mike G, I teased it just a moment ago, but fill in the blank. The most interesting Auburn player to watch and follow this spring will be blank. And I don't want to put you on the spot, so I'll give my answer first. I think there's a very real chance that the answer to this is Landon King. Is he a tight end? Is he a wide receiver? Regardless, I think we saw glimpses of him last year, enough to kind of whet the appetite, right? I think a lot of Auburn fans are going to want to know more, especially, about, did he develop as a route runner any? What's he weighing in at? Has he transformed his body at all in this short amount of time? Like, what are they kind of doing with, strength and conditioning with him? And how are they using him? Is he going to be an inline tight end with his, this next season? Or are they going to possibly slot him out a little bit more because Auburn needs more help with the wide receivers? So I think Landon King, it's easy to make the case that he will be the most interesting player to watch and follow this spring for the Auburn Tigers.
The most interesting player to follow this spring for me, not to anybody's surprise, is going to be D. Davis.
Okay.
Listen, we have a hell of a quarterback room, I think. Outside of TJ Finley, who started, a few games last season, I think there's an idea that this race is wide open. Now, you've got a newcomer in Holden Gariner, who I think, it'll be interesting to see how he plays, but I think all indications from Harsin are that Gariner is probably going to redshirt. And because you're going to need as few question marks as possible in this season for Brian Harsin, you're going to go with some guy who you've either had in your system or already has experience playing in the SEC. Zach Calzada is going to be limited this spring with shoulder surgery to his off throwing shoulder.
Yeah, non-throwing shoulder, right.
And that leaves Robbie Ashford and D. Davis. And there has been a lot of intrigue around D. Davis's progress so far. Reports are that he has really stepped it up. If we were to start the season today, he would definitely be the number 2 quarterback. That's not a total shock, but how he's arrived here.
I think it is. I think if D. Davis started the season as a number 2 quarterback, I think that would be a shock.
If the season started today, I think it'd be a slam dunk. Well, as things are, right? It would, you know what I mean? Because we can't do anything with Calzada's shoulder. He's still hurt in this scenario. So I think it's D. Davis, right? But that comes with reports that he's been doing well. He's been playing well. He's been stepping up. He stepped up his game. That's going to be interesting. A lot of fans wanted to see him at the end of last season and maybe felt like an opportunity was missed to get him in the game when he couldn't burn a red shirt. In the Iron Bowl, we had another quarterback in 3 games, playing on one leg. And we left him in there because there was an idea that we could not turn to our backup. So people are going to be watching D Davis to see, Zach, not everybody's going to come out of this spring on this roster.
No.
So how he performs will go a long way to deciding which one of these quarterbacks hits the portal after the spring. So everyone's going to have their eye on D Davis.
So what, 5 scholarship quarterbacks? There's no way Auburn keeps all 5 scholarship quarterbacks.
At
right?
least one is gone. At least one is gone. Now, Holden Gariner, I would think about this like it's a 4-man race.
Okay.
Holden Gariner is not going anywhere no matter what.
Right.
He just got here. He probably expected not to win the job.
So Gariner is the one you're excluding, making it a 4-man race.
Yeah, making it a 4-man race between Calzada, Finley, Ashford, and Davis.
Okay.
Right? So after the spring is over, you got to look at it. You got to look at TJ and you got to look at D Davis and think, which one of these guys, if they don't win the starting job, do they have incentive to stay on this roster? Because they just brought 2 other quarterbacks in. You got one guy who started almost every game for his team last season, in Zach Calzada. And then you got another one in Robbie Ashford, who is a supremely talented guy. He is a quarterback. We interviewed him. He wants to be thought of as a quarterback, not an athlete. He's here to play quarterback, and all indications are he's super ready to compete. So I don't see either one of those guys jumping out of the system, which leaves us with 2 very competitive guys left in D Davis and TJ Finley. And I really feel like because D Davis has not seen the field yet, and he's been in the system, he probably has the most to prove at this point.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you got to think there's really only 2 dudes that would leave in this scenario. D Davis, I think, makes total sense. He hasn't used his free transfer yet. And if he doesn't think that he could possibly play this year, I don't know when that opportunity is going to come. So right. I don't think anyone would blame him if if spring comes out and he's like, okay, he's number 2, but they're giving a lot of attention to Zach Calzada on the sideline, as far as the mental reps, it's like, okay, so I'm realistically number 3 in this scenario. So,
well, Chris Todd, I was going to say, Chris Todd told us no matter how well you play, they're always trying to bring somebody in that's better than you. So it might not be a good methodology to sit on a roster where you couldn't win the starting job for another year, waiting on them to suddenly discover that you're the guy.
Well, and also in this scenario, I mean, Calzada has more eligibility past 22, and so does Finley, and so does Garrett, and so does Ashford. So, so yeah, I wouldn't blame him at all. The Finley one is interesting because obviously he's already used his 1 free transfer, but if he kind of gets a lay of the land and he's like, well, I'm not going to play in 22 anyway, he could kind of do what Jarrett Stidham did when he left Baylor, and you park yourself at a year at at a JUCO or whatever it may be, and then you sit out, and then you go somewhere else where you're eligible in 23 anyway. And so I get it. I would totally not blame him if he did that. He's still young. He's played a good bit. He's got 2 years of SEC experience, about 1.5 starting when you all add it up, just shy of that. And so, I think there's another school that would find adding Finley to the roster attractive. And so, I would not blame him for doing that.
Yeah. So, TJ Finley is one of the upcoming interviews that we have. We sat with TJ and talked about the things that he feels like he needs to do this spring as well. So that quarterback race is going to be really interesting. You got a lot of guys who have
4 minutes of that. Just real quick, the first 4 minutes of that interview is fascinating.
Yeah, right. Like,
when is that dropping? Can you publicly say when that's dropping?
Yeah, that's going to drop on Monday.
Y'all watch
March
this.
the 6th.
Yeah.
Monday,
Be sure
March
to go to the War Report's YouTube page. Click the bell so you get notified when that TJ Finley interview drops. Go check it out because it is it's interesting.
Yeah, listen, I
hope I didn't give too much away. I hope I didn't give too much away on that.
Yeah, you're fine. Like, listen, these guys, these interviews have been raw and honest, and they said what they feel, but ultimately, they believe in this team and they think they have a team that can compete in 2022. So, feeling overlooked and undervalued, maybe a good thing for this squad. TJ's got a lot to prove this spring. I know I said D Davis has the most to prove, but TJ's got a lot to prove, not only to the team, but I think in some ways to himself.
Yeah.
Right.
But
Because he's a competitor. So a competitor wants to go out and challenge themselves,
yeah. But the question was, who's the most interesting? And I think D Davis's storyline this spring is much more interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What we don't know is what's so interesting about it. Like Calzada's not interesting to me.
So I think Calzada is kind of the expectation in my mind. It's
it's not interesting.
If it's someone not Calzada, it becomes insanely more interesting. So, and the fact that your probable starting quarterback can't play in the spring is wild.
Wild, yeah.
It makes wild and such a waste. I mean, you're just giving up so many reps. But hey, the glass half full way to look at this is maybe it gives a chance more to an Ashford or a D Davis,
right?
To kind of ascend up the depth chart and actually make the battle between whoever ascends this spring and Calzada. Maybe that does make it interesting.
Yeah, you have plenty of tape on Calzada. You almost
have
reps
though, but not reps.
True,
and these
but you
receivers and offensive line and tank. I mean, that's important.
Yeah, but you got tape, right? You don't have any. You have very limited data on the others in game time situations. So
Unless
I think
it's baseball. We know Ashford can play baseball.
Hey, listen, man, he is this
guy.
Athlete. He is an athlete. Don't tell him that though. Don't call him an athlete. Call him a quarterback because that's what he is. Damn it.
I get that. I respect that. Well, cool. No, I appreciate your answer. Hey, if you're watching on YouTube, how would you answer that question? Who do you think the most interesting player to watch this spring is? Would love to get your thoughts on that. Mike G, in just a moment, I was looking at the combine in Indy this week, and Auburn fans should expect more. And I'll tell you what I mean by that in just a moment. Today's show is brought to you by betonline.net. BetOnline is the place to check out all the latest odds, totals, player performance props, everything you need for wagering on sports and other things is available to you at betonline.net. Check it all out. Obviously, basketball is about to be huge. It is March, one of the best months of the year, but also they have hockey, boxing, UFC odds. They do not have baseball because no one has MLB right now. Very, very sad. But check it all out, betonline.net, where the game starts. Mike G, before we jump into combine stuff, because I think this will be an interesting conversation, but what all's going on at the War Rapport these days?
Listen, we got tons of basketball content. We're doing a lot of things at the War Rapport right now. We kind of referenced earlier, we're dropping player interviews. Last offseason, it was, former players turned pro. This offseason, we're actually doing interviews with current players. So head on over to the War Rapport on YouTube, hit subscribe. As Zac mentioned, turn on that notification bell so you know when we're dropping content, and look out for a lot of interviews to give us insight into where guys are at mentally this spring.
Right. And I want to encourage folks to head over to aushirts.com if you want a shirt like this one. Portal season is our shirt of the week over there. So go to aushirts.com, the top shirt up there. It's the featured one. You can get a discount this week. Use promo code Portal to get a nice chunk of the price taken off. That is at aushirts.com. All right. So I think Auburn fans should be upset that there's only 3 players participating in Indianapolis for NFL teams this week. Obviously, we've got Zacoby McClain, Roger McCreary, and Smoke Monday, all 3 defenders, which I think makes sense with how you look at how Auburn performed last year. But Auburn should have more than 3 dudes at the combine, Mike G. The SEC has 82 players from the conference. Auburn has 3 of them. And I don't think this is a knock on the NFL. And I want to be clear, this is not a knock on the 3 players that are represented. Mm-hmm. But I just think that number should be higher. Am I way off on that?
No. And you've intrigued me, Zac. So, wow, 3. Okay, so
out of 82 from the SEC, like that's none. That is virtually almost 0. Like when you compare it to the rest of the conference, and we've seen Auburn guys perform well. But it just, and this year, like I don't know who else they would realistically ask. You know what I mean? Like maybe Tony Fair and a role player type thing. Demetrius Robertson is projected to get drafted in day 3, maybe the 6th round. Maybe you ask him, but like It's just Auburn didn't put the talent out this year. And I think that's something Auburn fans should be like, yo, what's going on here?
Yeah, look at it this way. 30% of those kids are coming from Georgia and Alabama.
Right.
Right. They've got 25 kids between those two schools. Georgia is sending 14. Alabama is sending 11. Normally, that looks like LSU is kind of having a down year, but normally they've got like 10 kids in the draft as well, too. So,
LSU's best prospect isn't even like participating, I don't think.
Yeah, but they still got more than 3 guys at the combine, right? Yeah. Like, I'm looking at least 8 guys they're still sending to the combine, and we got 3. So this is
8 is a 10th, right? Like that's reasonable. That is a 10th. There's 14 teams in the league. Like, okay, that's a normal thing. 2 of the other teams in the conference, they both played each other for a national championship. Like they're going to have more. I get that. But 3 just seems ridiculously low to me.
Yeah, 8. Yeah, it's 9. Actually, Zach, it's 9. They got 9 guys in.
Okay.
So what I would say is this is a development issue, 100%, right? If you're not sending guys to the combine, this is a development issue that precedes Harsin, right? Because
this isn't Harsin's fault, right?
Yeah, just joining the draft is about the 3-year sample size that these kids have to go through before they can even become draft eligible.
Sure.
So, the 1 year that Harsin spent here did not, that's not the reason why we got 3 guys in the draft in this season. So sometimes you have down year, sometimes it's an off year. But let's remember, a lot of guys are opting to come back for their COVID years. So guys who might have been eligible for the combine are coming back.
Yeah, like Wooden, Hall, and Papo probably would have
gone to the combine, right? Yeah. So, but they're coming back.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's about guys choosing to stay in school at Auburn.
That's great.
But ultimately, that's maybe only half the equation. The other half of the equation is lack of development. That's something that we're going to look to improve. I mean, if we have less than 6 guys get invited to the combine next year, I'd be disappointed. So they've got to step that up. It's going to be big in recruiting as well, too, because recruits know these numbers. They know how many guys you're sending to the league because they want to be one of those guys.
It up. The coaches are telling them.
Yeah, they're telling them. Yeah. So,
being told. Yep.
So you got to be able to get guys to the next level if you want to be able to recruit effectively. Obviously, this coach's recruiting tactics have been under fire. So this season, he's got to show the development so that, he can get guys into a position to get invited to the combine, which ultimately will turn into one of your best recruiting tools.
Right. And you know what? John Samuel Shanker would have been invited, I would think, if he didn't go. So, like, that's another one. But, it's going to be those 4 guys that we just mentioned already next year, as well as Tank Bigsby will obviously be a part of it. Maybe a guy like Nick Brahms, just because he started in the SEC for so many years, they're going to probably want to look at him and talk to him.
I think we'll easily have 6 or 7 at the combine next year.
I think unless they just really drop off, I think we just named 6 or 7. So so we'll see. But that number the 3 made sense when that press release came out that Auburn sent with like, okay, yeah, Smoke makes sense, Roger makes sense,
Zacoby
of course makes sense. But it's like, wait, the SEC has 82 dudes. Like that's just what? And Auburn only has 3 of them. Like that just seemed really off to me. But you just talked me off the ledge, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, listen, and we regularly represent close to 33% of the kids put into the first round of the draft as well too. So I mean, there are high numbers there. There that 1 year
he is in the SEC. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, right in the first round. So when you look at the year that Schwartz and Seth Williams came out, we only have 4 guys I think go get drafted that year. And Jamie Sherwood was one of them, and I forgot who the 4th guy was.
Like KJ Britt's here?
Yeah, Britt.
No, Britt would have been the year before. But anyway.
But we didn't have high numbers there either, again, which pointed to that lack of development that had been going on. So we got to get those numbers up, man, if we want to compete and if we want to recruit well. They've got to show that.
Mike G, one more time, how can folks support the War Rapport and you and everything you have going on, man?
Hey, listen, not only us, but, I appreciate everybody who supports Locked On and all the other Auburn content creators out here on YouTube and on podcasts. But head on over to YouTube, type in the War Rapport, hit subscribe. Every view helps us to continue to bring you guys quality Auburn content.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, we'll wrap up the week tomorrow right here on Locked On Auburn.